Hello? Testing, testing. Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this muted microphone. It is brought to you by the lack of power in the... Let me start this off all again. Good morning, hi Dagger. I hope you're doing well on this fantastic day. Lady Blackbird, same to you. Hopefully I live up to the anticipation. Red Vex, greetings, salutations, hello. Welcome. Hope everyone is doing as well as can be. Yes. Fair enough, James. Fair enough. I'll just need to change some settings quickly, and then we should be onto the normal stuff. Good morning, Zarya. Hope you're doing well. Okay. Everything's working. Working as should be. That's good. It's good. It's good. Now I can focus on you, chat. That doesn't sound pleasant, Red Vex. Really doesn't sound pleasant. Yes. Accidentally Adopted is quite a nice series. I'm actually quite surprised that I'm the first person to do it. In this day and age, very, very rare that I'm the first person to do anything. Gavi. Yeah, I mean, major surgery does. I mean, my voice took 9 months, 10 months before it was close to normal with rehab and all that stuff. Physical surgery, well, hell, it was 6 months for that to heal, but it always takes a lot longer than you expect it to be. Good morning, Samurai Knight. I'm doing as well as can be. Yeah, root canals are not fun. We're settling in. Busy getting used to new time zones, new weather, that sort of thing. But I think we're getting there. Or mostly there. There's always something new or some weird thing that you notice. Like we went to the pharmacy yesterday and almost everything is behind the counter. Which is weird. South Africa, only the expensive stuff is behind counters and everything else is RFID tagged. So, bit odd. Not truly odd, just a little bit odd. So today we're likely to do the whole week, next week's worth of Accidentally. And then 3 episodes of The Human. That means that on Friday, tomorrow, we can do The Lost Humans. And then 2 of Because Someone Had to. And then on Saturday, because, days off for other people, we can do that. Awesome, my dagger. It was definitely an interesting experiment. The World of the Wars original Orson Welles thing. Yeah, it's like visiting a friend's house, if that makes sense. Where, for the first time, when you visit a friend's house for the first time, you're not exactly sure how things work. Some things work the same way, some things work slightly different. It's kind of like that, but on a bigger scale. Just want to check one more setting. Excuse me. Okay. That setting is definitely setting. All right. I think we're going to head into this chapter. Accidentally 5-4. 5-4. Greetings, ladies and gents, and welcome to this latest edition of Narrating. Greetings, ladies and gents. Thank you very much, Idaka. The goal has been completed. Yarg! There'll be treasure hiding in those hills over there. We just need to take it ashore and dig for our lives. Well, you're gonna dig. I'm gonna stand right here and point this gun at you. All right, yarg! There you go. But definitely, much appreciated, Idaka. Thank you very much. Greetings, ladies and gents, and welcome to this latest narration of the web series Accidentally Adopted. If you are new to the series, there is a playlist listed down below in the description. And as always, I hope that you enjoy. Part 5, Chapter 4, Shipwrecks. Dear Diary, oh stars, such an awful thing to happen. It's one thing to know there are pirates, but seeing, oh stars, I'm gonna cry. Sneaky is making the rounds to all of the kids after that, but I hit the target today. But that was before we even detected the squawker. After that, I don't want to only hit the target once out of like a bazillion shots. I'm going to the armory to check out an inert rifle and practice the aiming positions. After that, I'm going to drop by the infirmary and to see if they, to see. Log 6,001.1.11. Personal, Captain Yormdraw. Good morning, Anthony. Shadow. It is very much appreciated for the happy anniversary. It's very much appreciated. Thank you. I hope you both are having a fantastic day. Fair enough, Samurai. I understand fully. Log 6,001.1.11. Personal, Captain Yormdraw. Training with Gregory was getting easier, or at least I didn't feel quite so stiff running through these drills. He is keen to remind me that if I ever do end up being in a position to actually fight, we are all well and truly breached. It's a sobering experience. He carries this experience with him, and it pulls one along. I've seen it with every crewman. He runs them through the drills that most of our children are too young for with a quiet insistence. And we went with... And we want to meet his standard, especially since so many of us failed it, that my brother and I had to accompany him on the way team. I was on bridge duty when it happened. We caught a squawker on the comms. All hands! All hands to stations! All hands to stations! Distress signal in range! All hands to station! I called out the second I saw a ping on my display. Negran was already on his station at communications and already getting a fix on our location, and the rest of my bridge crew filed in to take up stations. It was one of ours. A home ship had died. A ship had been murdered. We could hear only one of her squawks. The Among the Star Tides we sing converted the distress beacon into the death keens of one of her sisters. The plea for any and all to come succor. The plea for many and all to come succor her orphans. The plea for any and all to come succor her orphans. We knew they would be weeping soon. We hoped to the stars that the orphans were alive. We managed to track the beam the lone escape pod into an empty cargo bay, but it was necessary for the stations to be manned. So I handed off the command to Yemdril and made my way down below. We hoped not in vain, but only just. There was a mercy that the babes were uninjured. The two oldest, a boy and a girl of 18 and 15 respectively, were bleeding out in the pod, while the other 4 children, between the ages of 3 and 12, were covered in bruises, and the 2 older boys had very obviously broken arms. Everyone has at least a little first aid knowledge, so triage was obvious. But our 2 medtechs were suddenly required to put their skills to the test. They were valiant and disciplined, and they quickly stabilized the boys enough to get them onto stretchers. Then I took up one end of the... Then I took up one end of one of the stretchers, and we made haste to the infirmary. 2 scans later, and 2 medtechs and 2 teenagers were battling to keep them from slipping below the waves of untimely... 2 scans later, and 2 medtechs and 2 teenagers... 2 scans later, and 2 medtechs and 2 teenagers were battling to keep them from slipping below the waves untimely. The rest of us applied painkillers and bandages and splints as needed, and these poor children haltingly bawled out a tale that I hadn't heard since my rescue days. Pirates. Pirates murdered that let us sail from joy to joy and stole her families. These places between borders have murdered more ships than I'd like to think on. Well, I have been doing it for several years. This is only the first edit, so this is what I call punch and roll. This is called punch and roll editing for narration. So if I make a mistake, I just quickly edit it out, which, interestingly enough, I couldn't do when I was recording video, because there's no way to quickly end a video, cut a portion out, and then continue recording a video. And there may be ways to do it, but I never found one. So the process for recording video and audio at the same time means I have to record everything, then edit it, and then... But if I'm doing just audio like I am now, I can do punch and roll editing, make a mistake, remove a mistake, reread. Then I send this off to my wife and she gives it a second pass. So she'll fix any things that I missed, like clicks and clacks and pops and stuff. Also, any weird pauses in the editing that I've done. And then she'll do the scrolling text video with that. So there's 2 rounds of editing. At the end of this edit, I process it, which just removes noise. It equalizes it. Thank you very much for the gifted sub. It is very much appreciated. Postmatic. Yeah, so at the end of this session, you'll see it, it'll process. So that's removing noise, balancing. Postmatic with another gifted sub. Thank you very much. Yeah. All right. Let's try finish the sentence. Yeah, so end of every story, no noise, equalization, which means the highs go down and the lows come up, so it's all about the same volume-ish. And then, what else is there? There's a bit of equalization just to remove any distortion from the previous steps, and then that's the processing. That gets sent off to my wife. She edits it, and then she posts it up to YouTube, and then I make a thumbnail. But punch and roll editing speeds up everything like a million times. Greg had carried one end of the stretcher. He must have held it over his head. It is easy to forget how strong he is unless he does something particularly active like that. Additionally, while he didn't know our medicine, he could help with bandages and splints, which he did with practiced hand and a soft voice for the distressed children, who was unsurprisingly buoyed by him. I shall have to order him to sleep if he keeps up his rounds and reassuring the children. Journal entry 46, date 187. Name Greg George. What exactly do I want Jesus on? What exactly? What exactly do I want Jesus on duty for, to swear by for this? An admiral with a fleet of angels? I'm going to have to make a name chart. It's not proper to call a lady Hooters, even if she doesn't know what it means. I can't even remember if I had a nightmare last night. This day has been so fecked. At least the meeting with the sergeants went well-ish. I had invited them to have a drink of their choice in the galley, but I was having hooch from these little Yeah, I dig it. Just makes it easier on the ears, so you don't blow people's eardrums out in one point and then whisper into the microphone. People can bear to hear. On the next point, the stream is compressed as well. But it's a different type of compression. It's a real-time compression. So you can still blow out the... or top out. Hooch. Or peak. Whichever one you want to call it. Hooch. Hooch. Hooch from these little plastodosa. Dosa? Plastodosa. Hooch from these little plastodosa packets, which does somewhat tedious to accomplish. I tried to drink it neat, but it was flavorless and hurt my soul, so I put it in some juice like a basic bitch. My guests slouched in for some tea. The first one, who I'd been thinking of as Bob, said in the talking civvy's voice, What did you want to discuss? I'll need to audit your squad soon, but our range isn't very expansive, and we'll have to use the gym and weight room for some movement drills, so I expect some half-squad scenarios on my desk by tomorrow evening. What? Asked the chick sergeant. I'm sorry. I thought I had competent non-commissioned officers. Do I need to go slower? No, she said quickly, with a scowl at me. She's just surprised that you know what you're talking about. I'm not a child. No. I'm not a... She's just surprised that you know what you're talking about. I am not a child. My people are just comparatively short. And adorable, snipped one. Speaking of confidence, you've let your men insulate from their hosts. That's a great way to create bad blood where it really shouldn't be. They sat there looking guilty. Order them to drop by the galley and tell stories. Order them to work out when crewmen are in the weight room. Order them to make some small talk while they swab the bulkheads. Just scorching, order them to make an effort to be sociable. The Wheat Sing is a very welcoming ship. I would know. I was met with a chorus of ayes, sir. Good. Now, any complaints? Bob laughed and said, Many. Any that matter? None, sir. Speaking of orders, we'll be meeting here once a week to provide an example. Then we made small talk for a few minutes before all hands sounded. Good morning, Maximum 666. Hope you're doing well today. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Because they said that the alcohol was only in medical. So it's probably like alcohol swab sachet thing. Which would be a pain in the arse to drink. Well, our duty station was the armory, but as soon as it was clear that it was a single escape pod, I ordered a detail in case it was full of hostiles, and we booked it to the relevant cargo bay. Fecking mangled kids inside. I'm going to ask Pops if we can go make a slight detour to address a local pirate problem. The kids are too rattled to give me any good intel on what I do. to give me any good intel on what to expect. And I'm going to make the rounds to make sure that all the littles know that we're on alert. Sneaky is watching. You got nothing to worry for.
Dear Loggery, we found an escape pod. Inside there were kids, hurt real bad. Mummy says that they will be okay because the Wee Sing will take care of them. Their ship got murdered.
There are several large smears across the page, as if it got wet and someone tried to wipe the liquid away. End of story. Oh, it's not a story, it's a chapter. End of chapter. Yeah, 4C sounds a bit chilly. And it's way chilly for me. Bordering on cold, in fact. Yeah, okay, so there's 4 processes that are currently running. It's denoise, obviously to denoise, declick, which is popping the clicking of the lips. It tries to remove that. There is an adaptive noise filter as well, just a little bit more noise removal. Shouldn't strictly be necessary, but I like having just an extra set. And then there's a compression and equalization. So 5 steps. And that'll be sent to the wife, and then she will put words to it. Hopefully the microphone's been muted for all the coughing. Well, technically it is spring. But the funny thing is, I have to go open up the door in the garage to let warm air in. Otherwise, my little troll cave dies in cold. But that's a later thing. Well, then that's great. Coughing and clearing of the voice, I'd imagine, would burst a couple of eardrums. What we're doing also, we've got 6 people watching on Twitch and 11 people watching on YouTube's. That's good. Oh, this is a top of the line gig here. We have a backup server, so when I save it, it goes to the backup server. And then my wife has a separate PC. When she wants to pull stuff, she pulls it from the backup server, works on it, and then puts it back on the backup server. So yes, it is separate PC. Well, it's 2 gaming laptops that I bought in South Africa. For this very specific purpose. Because both the video editing, which my wife does, and the audio recording and thumbnail design require beefy computers. Especially if I'm doing something like a stream. Oh, that's not what we did. We did that one. Fair enough. Pretty common to have different names on different platforms. As and when needed. Okay, so we've done that one, this one, then that one. So all of the accidentallys this week are pretty short. Next week they're normal-ish length. That's fair enough. At least it helps when you need to relax. You can just watch the fish swim around your PC, your CPU. Hello, hello. Should be unmuted. Test, 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 test. Testity test. And as always, I hope that you enjoy. There we go. The voices are talking to you from the internet. Heed them well, stranger. They may ask you to do many strange and improbable things. Cool. Supplemental. Report to Lord Justicar on new species. First of all, no. I do not want to join a different Justicar to get the promotion I deserve. The kids would be devastated to leave the little light of justice in the darkness, and I, for one, think it's funny that my wife gangs up on you with Aunt Viv. Besides, I don't mind being a non-commissioned officer longer than I strictly should be. I find the work rewarding, even if it puts me in more danger than you're comfortable. Even if it puts me in more danger than you're comfortable with. In regards to the pint-sized bipedal known as Sneaky, he is very obviously a fresh officer, but not fresh military man. It's discordant to hear such cutting orders from someone in the height of a toddler, but there it is. Moreover, it turns out that he was not lying about drinking stomach-purging doses of intoxicant. He had dumped at least a dozen of doses into a glass of juice, and what was muttering something about flavorous swill, though the juice looked quite vibrant to me. In any case, I tried to make some subtle inquiries about his people in general, and it was difficult to get a fix on his answers. A lot of "it depends" or "some guys like," so I imagine that they are very like we. So I imagine they vary like we do. He was an easy sort of quiet confident. He has an easy sort of quiet confidence that sort of draws you in, and every grisly detail of a raid gone very, very wrong don't make him flinch in the slightest. The honorific for his rank does make him flinch, though. Now this I understand. Well, again, no, I do not want to transfer to become a lieutenant. He did say that he is considered unusually quiet amongst his people, and that's partly due to his profession as a scout. I suppose being required to be silent for long periods of time would make someone into a quiet soul, or attract those types in the first place. Just because he's new to being an officer didn't mean that he didn't know what he was doing. He gave all three of us proper officers scolding. He didn't even swear at us. That's just quiet, insistent. That's just that quiet, insistent. Just that quiet insistence that we should have already done what he's currently ordering us. Just that we should have already done what he's currently ordering of our own accord. Frankly, he was right. But it's always the other non-commissioned officer's job. A neat little detail is that there in the military, there are no officers who are not enlisted first. Some go straight from private to cadet, or sailor to ensign, when they show exceptional leadership promise. But the general test is whether a man can handle leading a small group before putting him in command. Sensible. I suspect that he was a candidate for such a role, because when all the hands sounded, he snapped off a set of orders that were so sensible that we'd have done them after we figured out which squad would be doing what. Then, when we found out that it was an escape pod being taken aboard, he ordered me to put together a guard detail, and we quickly made our way to the cargo bay, being used to bring it in. Seeing injured children will never be something I can handle well, Uncle. I could see that he was disturbed as well, but despite not being familiar with our medicine, he helped in triage as he could. His tiny frame is ridiculously strong. He helped move one of the most severely injured children to the infirmary, and required him to hold his half of the stretcher above his head for the 5-minute run to make the journey. Furthermore, he is keenly aware of how he appears to us, and uses it to his advantage. In this case, an adorable friendly face telling injured and traumatized children that they were safe now, and got them calmed down in record time. Uncle, if we can manage to actually make contact with more of his people, I suggest an alliance. Every Justicar could do with a squad of them aboard for situations involving distressed children. Also, if what he did to those criminals is anything to go by, their fighting skill could help save more children. Regards, Jawman. End of chapter. Bit of a shorty, but that is the nature of such things. Next one's also a shorty. 5, 6, and 7. 5, 6, and 7. Red Vex, just don't overclock your PC, otherwise that poor fish is going to kill itself by swimming itself to death. A little pause before going on to the next one. Good night, I Forget Worlds. Thank you for popping past. It's very much appreciated, and I hope you have a fantastic sleep. Marcus, a friend of mine, was very big into fish at one point in his life, but through life circumstances ended up having no fish. So they retired to his house. The Actors Guild are now under his tutelage for the rest of their lives. Because there was no way that we could bring them with us. But they are good. They are very well looked after. Okay, on to the next chapter. Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this latest edition of Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this latest narration of the web series Accidentally Adopted. If you're new to the series, there is a playlist listed down below in the description. And as always, I hope that you enjoy. Part 5, Chapter 5, At Anchor. Oh, excuse me. Coffee's Anchor. At Anchor. Log 6,001.1.12. Personal, Captain Yormtrel. I put the ship on alert rotation, and having the landers aboard has actually helped with this. Normally, this would just mean the bridge crew is on a short enough rotation, such that at any given time there are enough of us present to pilot the ship and fire the weapons. such as they are. But if there is a ship murderer lurking in these stars, in any case, the landers have been patrolling in four-man details in areas where boarding might be affected. I did not have to order Gregory to rotate out for sleep, as it happens, and he's gotten the bigs. and he's gotten the bigs to form a rotation to keep an eye on those. And he's gotten the bigs to form a rotation to keep an eye on those of our littles most likely to become distraught, several of whom have somehow made their way into Yovdrill's room. Thank the stars that the infants were uninjured, as they were taken in by Nandran and Krilla, whose son is Yovdrill's age. They hadn't put most of his infancy furnishings into storage yet, so it was relatively easy to adjust. I say relatively, as though the babes in the past were waning. I say relatively, as though the babes are past their weaning. They require much care, and they no doubt terribly miss their mothers and cannot understand why their cries do not summon them. It breaks my heart. The middle children run from the inconsolable to clinging, but all of them are uplifted when Greg comes to visit them. Both the two who are ambulatory and the two confined to infirmary beds. Which isn't to say it's effortless on his part. No. The toddler-sized soldier puts an air of cheerfulness that seems to pour from him to the deep. The toddler. The toddler-sized soldier puts on an air of cheerfulness that seems to pour from him from his deep reserves of care. I even heard that he was walking on his hands to entertain the children in the infirmary, which I regret not seeing. It sounded very entertaining. The two oldest teens have been given several transfusions and are being closely monitored. They've yet to regain consciousness, but I suspect that they will have the most coherent version of events. We've not pressed the children to tell us anything, but they have a need of us, a need for us to understand what they have suffered. Yet they cannot make themselves understood. They cannot get past the pirates' boarding that let us sail from joy to joy without breaking down in sobbing or wailing. Without any further information, I've ordered that we all stay in the anchor. Without any further information, I've ordered that we'll lay at anchor for another day or so. Without any further information, I've ordered that we'll lay at anchor for another day so we can get some long-distance scans before trying to chart a course. There is the idea in my mind of using the landers to do the little anti-piracy action, though it's not strictly their mission. Gregory has mentioned that they would be amendable to a side quest, as he put it. Dear Diary, it's easy to see how someone can focus themselves to do something and think, what happened to my brother? But that's the thing. They're still the same man, just focused. I was starting to think that Greg only cared about fighting, about getting at that awful poacher. But I was wrong. He was just focused on a goal. Maybe it's not good to focus on a goal so much that you forget to stop and enjoy the movie nights, or you don't tell funny stories about what your brother did to a welding robot anymore. But it's not like it makes someone a different person. Just a person who needs a little reminder to take a breath and let the pressure bleed off a little. So, with the orphans, Greg is all smiles and bouncing around and stuff. I know it costs him effort, but it somehow recharges him at the same time. Kind of like how he's always in a good mood after running an exercise class. Something to keep in mind. A sister has to look out for a goofball older brother. Stars knows he won't do it. Stars knows he won't do it. I'm also super excited to have the manufacturing bay up and running. Well, we had our first run of sneakies, but they looked kind of doofy. I'll have to go into the program and edit some of the parameters, but I should have down in 1 or 2 more tries. In the meantime, all of the littles got a sneaky of their own. A few of the landers have asked if they could have one of mine. A few of the landers have asked if they could have one off my next run for my kid or to give to my niece. Uh-huh. Sure, it's totally not for you. Journal entry 46, date 187, name Greg George. Lucy's getting the plushie bay up and running. Hell yeah. The first run looked a little deformed, but that's whatever. The kids liked him anyway, so I'm pretty chuffed at that. She decided to start with the jumpsuit version for ease of modeling. Sorry about the little details on my blues, Lucy, but the real deal would probably give you an aneurysm. The two teenage boys are still unconscious, but the corpsmen dudes have stopped looking pale and terrified. So I think it's down to waiting and paying out. Looking pale and so I think it's down to waiting and praying that at this point. Good work, Corpsman dudes. The Wee Sing is proud of you. Man, this skitch just went through hell, but I'm honestly impressed with them. They're all taking food, they want to talk, and they aren't trying to hide from us. Hot damn, kids. You're all super strong. End of chapter. Yeah, I'm not really a fan of watermelon-flavored anything, including watermelon-flavored watermelon. Clickety-clack, clickety-clack, clickety-clack. Next still stuff from yesterday. My wife loves watermelon. Not necessarily watermelon flavored stuff, but she's more tolerant of it than I am. Oh, that's true. But any flavoring of watermelon, I'm not a fan of.
Okie dokie. On to the next story.
Oh, on to the next chapter. Cherry's nice. I mean, as a flavorant, it's also quite nice. I mean, here is... cinnamon.
Cinnamon.
I think. Pretty sure that's cinnamon. Tastes like the old sweets fireballs. The hot. Which is fine, because I can't eat the hot these days. And that sounds extreme. But yes, cats and dogs, they get the weirdest foods. They're addicted to the weirdest foods. My cat and bully beef. Well, my cat. My wife's cat and bully beef. Oh my god. You have to find that thing off with a freaking spatula. And even then, it's a 50-50 chance. Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this latest narration of the web series Accidentally Adopted. If you're new to the series, there is a playlist listed down below in the description. And as always, I hope that you enjoy. Part 5, Chapter 6, We Sing. Journal entry 46, date 191. Name Greg George. The wee sing was wrong on the inside. She was more like a Wendy, just Reaver-sized. I inspected my platoon of troopers, but the platoon was just the bigs and I'd been training repeated over and over, plus Linus. In the dream, it felt normal. I ordered them to fall in, and they loaded up into the boarding torpedoes. Then I watched Linus get sealed up into the second last one. Then we would fight at a grub ship. Good morning, dazed, or afternoon or evening, whatever it may be for you. I hope you're having a fantastic day. Or night, or again, whatever it may be for you. We would fight at a grub ship. I woke up in a cold sweat again and managed not to cry out. The thought that it should be right and proper to put Linus into a boarding torpedo had me trembling in terror. Listen, subconscious, he's 5. I know we had to grow up early, but you really don't have to prepare... I know that we had to grow up early, but you really don't have to prepare me to command him in combat. We have time for him to grow up like normal. Although, I do wonder about birthdays. It seems to me that the ship could do with a party, and if none of the crew or their kids are having a birthday, I don't see why the 51 extra dudes couldn't have one, at least close. If they don't, I'll just order them to pick out a birthday boy anyway. If I'm feeling rattled, then the rest of the ship is probably feeling it too. Fair enough, Days, fair enough. I know it's a weird time on the US side of things. So, over the next the coming months, hopefully, I'll be changing the times just to try to find the sweet spot. Maybe I'll just stick it at this time. I'm not sure. It'd be awesome if we could get up to 50 concurrent viewers, which we're heading to, slowly but surely. I just need to do this consistently so that people know it's happening, too. Anyway, we spent today at anchor so that Pops and Uncle could try and get a read on whether there are any pirate traps. I have a notion of what we should do if he finds them. As to that, the sergeants came by the armory to file their proposed schedule, which looked somewhat sensible to me. However, we're going to have to postpone the orders. I want a full alert all today. However, we're going to have to postpone the order. I want a full alert all today, and at least 4 teams on patrol at any given time. I don't know what the enemy's capabilities are, and I'm not willing to count on our detection hardware's infallibility. The Joy-to-Joy got caught somehow. She was lightly pulled from hyperspace, said the girl sergeant, which indicates that they have the ability to hide the traps from in hyperspace. Which indicates that they have the ability to hide their traps from in hyperspace detection, at least. Furthermore, there is the possibility that the escape pod was bait. I had the same thought. The third one, who I was thinking of as the other guy, murmured, "Make sure your boys are well rested, and tell them it's fine to chat with our crew while on duty. Just walk and talk." "Aye, sir. Now, I have a notion that you guys wouldn't like the idea of these pirates just going around orphaning children, enslaving people, and murdering ships." "Aye, sir." The 3 of them almost spat at me. "So I'm going to suggest that we sail right into the trap that we... So, I'm going to suggest that we sail right into the trap if we detect it, and I'll assemble my defense squad while you guys counterboard."
"That sounds like an excellent notion to me," Bob said coldly.
"Is there anything you needed from me?" I asked.
"No, sir," Bob said. "We'll finalize the plan if we have the time. In the meantime, I'll have my squad on standby for counterboarding operation."
Well, I think the only way to really do it is word of mouth. So, streams are a very weird thing. I wouldn't even have a clue where to advertise to night shift workers. But if you know anybody working on night shift, send them the stream. Tell them that it's awesome. And maybe we'll get some new peeps. It's all about the word of mouth and you guys sharing, which is appreciated. In that case, order your men to wear their vacuum armor. Don't you think that's the crew's vacuum suits are at the ready, and so are the children's. The conscience orphans' accounts haven't been all that clear, but I think that the threat of a hull breach was a part of the pirates' plan. Girl Sergeant looked a little sick when she said, "Aye, sir." Dismissed. After that, I collected Linus and Lucy and went to the infirmary with some gifts. Stuffed Sneaky's Mark II, and some blank sanity journals. Well, really, they were just notebooks I managed to scrounge up from storage. But the various styles and sizes made them more personal. At least, I think they did. Now, it was not like I planned to arrive just when both of the teenagers regained consciousness. But for some reason, Scrubs 2 praised the healing power of cuteness. Well, really, they were just overblowing it because it's not like they woke up when I stepped in the room. I was checking up on the kids, asking them if they liked the food, handing out the plushies, and answering questions about why I looked so funny for like 10 minutes before 10 minutes before they so much as moved. I have no idea how to do YouTube shorts. Quite honestly. I mean, I can't do YouTube shorts of the stories, really, because that's a half or a fraction of a story, which is irritating. And I don't think I say anything particularly funny in between them. So I think I would have to have somebody dedicated to clipping out parts and then posting them as shorts. And I'm not sure how shorts affect the overall channel. Because I do know that there are a lot of channels that shot to popularity through shorts that struggle to move to long-form content. No, thank you for the kind words, Post. Much appreciated. That's true. I have no idea, James. I didn't know he was. Moved. For like 10 minutes before they so much as moved. Then it was all, "You're safe. This is Star Status ship. We heard your squawker, so of course we came. No, I'm not a toddler. I'm just very short. No, we didn't see the pirates. No, we don't know what happened. Then the boy talked. He talked about getting ripped out of hyperspace, and their ship being bombarded with lasers to deplete their battle screens before being harpooned and forcibly docked by a pirate ship for boarding. Their captain had offered to surrender the cargo, but these pirates were apparently death cultists looking to capture sacrifices to some great old one, or some such crap. There's a chance they're still alive. He was insistent about that. Then he started weeping. He said that he had hoped his little sister had gotten to the other set of escape pods, but he knew that we wouldn't have left her. So he fought his hardest to protect the kids and started to apologize for not saving them all. It wasn't easy to convince him that I knew what he was going through. It wasn't easy to tell him that he can still be strong like my brothers are. There is a whole controversy with Starbound, so take it with a pinch of salt. They've been banned off of HFY, as far as I know. Fair enough, Samurai. I've tried shorts several times, to not much success. But we can keep fiddling, I suppose. We have to keep up with the algorithm. My brothers are. Dear Diary, I'm not good at shooting. I know it's not like you can just be good at something after practicing for a couple days. But it feels like my progress is slowed compared to Wex. But like he's stronger than me, so maybe that has something to do with it. Anyway, my grouping isn't very close together, but at least I mostly hit the targets now, even when they move. Greg is talking about getting us fitted for vacuum armor. Already we are drilling to get into vac suits when battle stations are called. At first I thought I was paranoid, but now I'm making sure that there are spare baby pods in every room. The second run on Stuffy Sneakies looked way better than the first ones, and the error rate is pretty low. Or at least it's projected to be low. We'll run a couple hundred and see how many quality controls knock out to see if we can have... We'll run off a couple hundred and see how many quality control knocks out. Good morning, Edderworks. Thank you for the congratulatory message. Very much appreciated. Projected to be low. Or at least it's wrong. We'll run off a couple hundred and see how many quality control knocks out to see if we have to adjust it correctly. Which was convenient because I wanted the orphans to get the best looking sneakies. I finally learned why Greg has his diary. It's, it makes sense. I still want to cry when I think about it, but I tell myself that it's good that he's working to heal and cope. It was when we were in the infirmary and the two big boys woke. It was when we were in the infirmary and the two bigs woke up. What? Where? The older boy started. What is that? They call me Sneaky. You can talk? Of course I can. Why wouldn't I be able to? But you don't sound translated. Oh, I don't have an implant. It's a long story. But the short version is my job had some special rules. Oh, the girl said. But she looked more confused, not less. While the other kids just rolled their eyes since they'd integrated other crewmates for the answers yesterday. Like I said, it's a long story, and honestly, it's not very fun to tell.
I see, said the boy. But what are you doing here?
I am master at arms on the Among the Startides We Sing. I went a little viral a few days ago.
Again,
I interjected. He's the one from the Because I'm Short. They recognized him then, and Greg just looked chagrined as he said, Anyway, I'm also the kids' coach, and, well, it seems like coming here cheers up the kids. It seems like coming here cheers up the other kids.
Well, you're cute,
The girl, who looked just a little older than Yoiv, called out. Without missing a beat, Greg said, Slanderous lies, which elicited a round of giggling, and our two teenagers even cracked a smile. So your questions. Captain, new crew member detected. Greetings, lady. That was my voice telling me something. I don't know what the frick it was telling me. Oh, a subscriber. Thank you for the subscription, Dazed Razor. It's very much appreciated. So your questions. As you have probably gathered, you're on the Star Sailor ship. We heard your squawker. We came for you. Wait, aren't you like a toddler? No, like the meme says. I'm just short. Don't worry, I'm also roguishly handsome. Sorry. I don't worry about it. You're probably thirsty. Let's get you some water.
What about the cultists?
Haven't seen anything except your pod.
Then you don't know.
Nope. So far as we're concerned, there is a bunch of pirates running around on stolen time in need of being relieved of their last breaths.
You don't understand, the boy said. They're not just pirates. They're cultists, worshippers of the great old ones, the Lady of Suffering. They lay ambushes to murder ships and steal her families, to sacrifice them in awful rituals. And it's not just killing. They torture people to death, to make them suffer for their lady. I fought. My sister, my little sister was fighting to get to the other pods. Sailors wouldn't just leave an escape pod in the Great Dark, so that means I should have fought harder.
Stop. Believe me, going down that path leads nowhere good.
What do you know? You don't know what it's like to have everything ripped away with no good reason.
I don't know what I expected, but it wasn't the saddest smile I've ever seen across Gregory's face as he said, You call them consumptives. We call them grubs.
I'm sorry.
A ship, planet. So listen, when I tell you that you did great, I'm serious. A man grown would scarcely have done better. And it's down to terrible chance of being against you that you couldn't save more. You did what you could. You did what you had to be done. You did what had to be done because you were there and you had the heart to fight. I know that you can't help from feeling like it's not enough. That's where you. That you're drawn to a dark place by it. I was in that place for a long time. Sometimes in that place now. And I'm sorry that that's never going to go away. You can cope, though. He held up one of the journals he brought along. One of the first tools my therapist gave me was a sanity journal. Well, we weren't supposed to call it that, but we were military men, and telling us not to call them something a sanity journal is a great way to ensure that we do it. Anyway, for me it's helpful to recall the events of the day and my thoughts on it. And my thoughts on it. And my thoughts on them, so it doesn't get all jumbled and mixed up. Other guys wrote little stories. Some even wrote poems. The important thing is to get your thoughts and feelings outside your head so that you can look them over, examine them, decide what to keep. Nobody's going to make you write in them, and nobody will read them unless you ask them to. Only what you want them to. That's an important part of it. It's yours, and you decide how it's used.
Oh, Stars, I kind of thought it was like this diary. Something he just did because he wanted to. It's a good thing. Scars mean he isn't dead.
Well, thank you very much, Shadow Aura. It is very much appreciated. Log 6,001.1.13. Personal, Captain Yormdrel. I have very little. I have very little to record on the day's events, save that I know where the pirate trap is, and that they might be torturing some of my people, even now. Gregory informed me that the landers are eager to put a stop to these activities. My sails are set into the gale, high-weight anchor, and we will be yanked into real space just in under a day. We sing a dirge for the Let Us Sail from Joy to Joy. The war song is just behind it. A scrap of paper that somehow wound up included. The wee sing prepares to fight. My daughter is losing innocence, bright. My son, plucked from the darkest night, fears the loss of what he's made good and right. Husbands' hearts burn like fire. Oh, stars, do not Oh, stars, do not use such for his pyre. Though evil looks upon him with ire, let our strength, let his strength never tire. End. End of chapter. All right, we've got equal viewers on Twitch and Google. That's good. 11 and 11, as far as I can see. It's awesome. And 1 new subscriber. That is truly fantastic. Oops. Oh, excuse me. Another yawn. Ugh. I'm not sorry. I'm not even remotely sorry. Maybe a little bit sorry. Fair enough, Joseph. Fair enough. We are in the Let's Chatting category, so it's not great, but there is no other more appropriate category. Not like I'm playing a game, and there is no category for voice acting or narration. But each view is appreciated, each subscription is appreciated, each like of the stream is appreciated where appropriate. Okay, on to the next chapter. Oh, Dad's fine. It's doing okay. Yeah, he had to go back to England, so he's going to be there for 3 months and then come back. We're having a bit of a problem with the lawyers and, well, not lawyers, the department of naturalization or whatever it's called. So he was here for 3 months, which is the maximum allowed. So he's gone back to England for 3 months, and then he'll come back for 3 months. Hopefully then we can Get him his permanent residence. But yeah, other than that, he's doing as well as can be. No, I've got myself in a yawn loop. Alrighty, let's move on to chapter number next. Your greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to his latest narration of the web series Accidentally Adopted. If you are new to the series, there is a playlist listed down below in the description, and as always, I hope that you enjoy. Part 5, Chapter 7, Answered Prayers. Log 6,001.1.14. Personal, Captain Yormdraw. I had a last meeting with my officers, including Gregory and one of the officers from the Landers. I'm not a military man, but it seems to me the sergeant is kind of a commander, so his presence seemed appropriate to me. In any case, I laid out the plan for the bridge crew. In 5 hours, we'd be pulled into real space, and we would simulate a major engine and life support failure. Gregory suggested that we compress as much of our atmosphere as possible into our emergency replenishment tanks, as the cultists would likely cause a hull breach in the quarters deck to encourage a quick surrender. I agreed to doing this, as we'd have plenty of time to accomplish it. When it came to the actual fighting, Gregory called up a wireframe of the ship and pointed out 6 areas and made something of a speech. First, bridge crew. The corridor leading to the bridge offers very little cover to any attacking force, while giving you an excellent place to have 3 to 4 people putting down While giving you an excellent place to have 3 to 4 people putting fire down range at any given time. It is highly unlikely that you will have to fight at all, but the equipment should be protected anyway. My people will focus on taking the bridge and engine room as strategic goals. More importantly, the skills of the bridge crew are irreplaceable. Only after the defense squad is overrun should we be... Only after the defense squad is overrun should you be at risk. He paused and gave each of us a stern look in turn, until every last one of us had signaled assent. Good. Keep your blood cool and trust your crew. Speaking of, defense squad will be broken up into teams of 4. Airlocks 1 through 6 will be held, while the counterboarding will proceed through airlocks 1, 3, and 5. My boys agreed, but they can keep your back clear. Bob, spelled phonetically for proper noun runes. Bob, spelled phonetically with proper noun runes. I don't like it. Barb, phonetically spelled with proper noun runes. I don't like it, but you're going in blind. We know they're cultists. They worship this Lady of Pain, a great old one, but I suspect that I don't really get what that means. I don't care. They've hurt my people. They have some of us held hostage. We're taking them back if I have to climb in boarding torpedo and do it myself. Boarding torpedo? The sergeant asked. Gregory just smiled and said, I know the rumor has been floating around the squads. Yes, I was shot at a ship inside a torpedo once. The only reason I wasn't more is my job was about planets and not ships. I suspect that Jawman was trying to pry for further information, and I briefly considered informing him that there was very little that Gregory isn't prepared to discuss about his people and how they operate. Then I decided his clumsy attempts at subtlety was funny. Then I ordered all hands into vac suits, including the children. We weren't going to be caught off guard. I despised the feeling of an unplanned drop into real space. Unplanned so far as the ship systems was concerned anyway. We were expecting it. Gregory was correct. They opened by damaging the hull of the quarters deck. Nothing structural, but if we hadn't taken precautions, the decompression would have destroyed the viewport in the galley. Apparently, we put on a fairly convincing act of being crippled, and they fired their boarding harpoons almost immediately. It was worse clutching my weapons and watching for enemies down the corridor. Even on the away team, my nerves were never so frayed. More than once, I considered rallying the bridge crew to join the counter orders. More than once, I considered rallying the bridge crew to join the counter orders and taking the fight to the cultists. However, I had given my word. The difference in feeling is startling. We just sat in the bridge and did void all while we trusted others to do the work. It was surprisingly difficult. At least when we were going to retrieve Yovdrol and destroy the criminal group, it felt like I was proactive. The aftermath. We're not really equipped to handle this, and the enemy ship isn't very suitable. I need to think over what to do. I heard that thing is full of horror. I'm loath to put her down, but the things they did to her, the things that they've done on her.
Dear Diary, I'm surprised. It wasn't as scary as I thought. Sneaky had told us to be ready to get vac suits. So when Dad sounded the all hands to vac suits, everyone was ready. Then we followed his training. We got our weapons issued at the armory and gathered the littles in the weight room and made some barricades to take cover behind. We made sure to keep alert for any signs of anyone cutting through the walls, though. The hardest part.
Good morning, Brian. Hope you're doing well. Yep, I've been live streaming again for, what is today? Thursday? 5 days. 6 days? 5 days. But fear not, we shall be streaming on a more consistent level now that we've settled into Portugal. I hope that you are doing well. That life has treated you as well as can be.
We made sure to keep alert for any signs. We made sure to keep alert for any signs of anyone cutting through the walls, though. The hardest part was keeping the littles calm. On the one hand, you can't let them panic, and on the other, you can't let yourself get distracted in case the bad guys broke through. It was mostly up to us bigs and the adults not assigned to duties to, protect and sense... project a sense of confidence. I don't know if I really managed it. The thing that really helped was Joy's unshakable faith that Sneaky would win. The fact that he was recently in danger and rescued by Dreg kind of helped Dreg. The fact...
Nice, Brian. Congratulations. Always a big step. I say always a big step, like I've done it multiple times. I've done it once. It was a big step.
Sneaky would win. The fact that he was recently in danger and rescued by Greg kind of helped the other kids latch onto the idea that he knows how to fight the bad guys. I mean, it wasn't wrong, but I think I won't make a big deal out of it to Greg. He'd probably get all embarrassed. Anyways, it's unsettling to know that on the other side of my face shield is a vacuum, even if it looks pretty normal. I really hope that we don't have to do it again. If we do have to do it again, I'll try to be braver. Mission Log 1. Mission boarding action. Mission objectives. Eliminate all hostiles. 60 hostiles eliminated. Objective complete. Rescue any surviving prisoners. 10 adults rescued, 3 in critical condition. 7 children rescued, minor injuries. Objective complete. Mission parameter. Maximize enemy casualties. No quarter asked or given. Rescue all prisoners still alive. Observation. Landers performed well in combat.
Thank you very much, Brian. It is very much appreciated for the support. Oh, I'm supposed to do pirate voice. We met our goal again. Yes, us is we're going to have to bury all this treasure. Well, you're going to have to bury it. I'm going to watch. Yarg. Need to work on my pirate voice. Observation. Observation. Rescue all prisoners. Landers performed well in combat, some of whom are able to accurately deploy 2 weapons at once. Landers acted professionally, did not make rookie mistakes. Lever's flashbangs seemed underpowered, but are reusable. Journal entry 47, date 1/9/2. Name Greg George. Okay, so shipwrats have pretty okay point about their missions being pretty simple and fast. Still though, I'm not super pleased with how we had to go about things. Then again, the Weesing is a cargo ship, not a cruiser or even a destroyer. Well, we do well enough with what we have. The armor was very helpful, especially our helmets. TACnet. Hell yeah for TACnet. Boo for command positions, though. Boo command. I'm enlisted, goddammit. Anyways, Pops had us all meet to finalize. Pops had us all meet to finalize the plan as we hurtled towards the cultists like a shell out of a howitzer. But that's fine. Since the last minute But that was fine. Since the last minute is when you get the best intel, if there is any. Anyways, I wanted the Landers in the loop, so I picked out Bob and made him the gunny since he seemed like the most senior NCO. Of course, there wasn't any new intel, but that's okay, since we had a pretty solid defense plan in case the enemy is stronger than we think. Well, there was a job to do and work needed done, as they say, and we had what we needed to do it with. We managed. We managed well, all things considered. It sucks. Yarg, loot! It sucks, but had to focus on big picture developments, so I stayed behind to direct things, which I didn't have to do much since the Landers are competent. They have that breach and clear procedure down pat, and they had a couple specialists get me the specs of the ship as soon as they found a system readout. That made coordinating the whole deal way easier. And since the enemy ship was so much smaller, I was able to pull teams away from the untouched airlocks and leave them just a couple of dudes. Each of them. And leave just a couple of dudes each at them to keep an eye on them and reinforce the counterboarding. It was right move, since there was some cultists trying to sneak around and cut my Landers off from behind, probably thinking that they were our entire force. My dudes made them into piles of broken carapace and ichor. In any case, I don't like the way the Spider Centaur people move, and the way that these cultist fighters were pretty stupid, even when compared to their mafia. Apart from that one attempted flanking move, they went with the wave of body strategy, and failed to notice that their weapons didn't even scuff our dude's armor. It was unsettling as feck to watch, though. Fecking scuttling. The state of the survivors, well, it's not very good. Not much on the injury front, except for 3 of the infirmary. Our EMT dudes say that they'll probably be okay. But it's still somewhat touch and go with them not dying. Fecking ritual torture. Glad we killed them fecking all. Glad we killed them fecking all. Glad they didn't even try to surrender. Feck them. From the memoir of Beastmaster Solvace. I got pulled out of Hyper by a bunch of religious nuts for the Lady of Pain. The idiots believed my venerations, and I was able to convince them that she had granted me a vision of her preferred sacrifice, namely the braided warm bloods. If the Queen won't bring back the age of the Corsairs, we'll... If the Queen won't bring back the age of the Corsairs, well, she's too weak to stop us anyways. I got a new slave out of it, small, female, supple. It is especially pleasant to make her beg for scraps to eat. Then again, she screams so beautifully when I push her past her words. Then again, she screams so beautifully when I push her past words. End of story. Alrighty, that's the last accidentally adopted for the day. Oh, stretch. Oh. Oh, yes, he definitely will. Apparently it does, Kira. Apparently it does. Means Monday's chapter will be that much more pleasant. I think. Where were we? The old done. Done. Got that. Got that. 21. Oh, my eyes. Tis too bright, too bright. The way this website loads is like I'm on super slow internet, but I'm not. I'm on super fast internet. Apparently, it's on a go slow at the moment. Don't know, James, don't know. I wouldn't spoil it anyway. Alrighty. Oh, excuse me. Moving on to the old human from a dungeon. Getting ready for next week's stuff. Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this latest edition of... Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this latest narration of the web series The Human from a Dungeon. If you are new to the series, there is a playlist listed down below in the description. And as always, I hope that you enjoy. Chapter 21. Imlaw Tula, Adventurer Level NA. Gnome Kokenian. 2 carts? I asked incredulously. Yes, Monar said. We're going to have them go with the main caravan, but they don't want to leave for another 2 days. If you're willing to take them yourself, we'll happily supply you with an additional cot you'll need.
And all I have to do is take the passengers to the capital?
Correct. 8 passengers total. Most are adventurers, but you'll need to spring for a guard force.
Adventurers? Can't I just pay them to guard the caravan?
I chuckled. If you can afford them, Monar said. 4 of them are over 20s, and the other 3 are over 5s.
Yes, I can afford the other 5s, but even the one over 20 is too rich for my blood,
I said. We don't have a lot of time. What's your decision?
Of course I'll do it. A free cart? I'd have to be dumb to say no.
Good, Monar said with satisfaction. We'll get it attached to your current one, and your passengers will arrive soon. I nodded my understanding as the chief's aide turned and walked away. Things had gone well for me since the debacle with the giant rats. I made more than enough to replace the harnesses and patch my cart up. Now they were going to give me another cart, and all I have to do in exchange is take some adventurers back to the capital with me. Despite not even technically being a village, Naluva always treats me pretty well. I watched as some of the orcs attached a new cart to the rear of my own. They also moved the goods I'd purchased to even them out between the carts to make room for seating. I walked over to inspect my new cart. It was constructed well. I seem to have had a little break. A little hiccup in the internet. I'm glad you're moving on from being a station attendant, Brian. Lord Volpex, I'll probably have to say it in a fancy way so that the algorithm gets confused. Good morning, Plexus. I hope you're doing well. Just waiting for... Plexus, I only use the military-styled uniform when recording videos, video for the narrations. I'm currently only recording audio for the narration, so I don't need to be in a uniform. Plus, those are still in South Africa. Well, I've only been streaming since Friday. No? Saturday. So 5 days of streaming. Yeah, we're in Portugal at the moment. We've moved over. And this has really been the first time that we could sort of stream. I had to rebuild my studio. As you can see, it's different. Better, I think, than my old studio, but still been a thing. But yeah, so the only people that are going to see me are you, the stream watchers. People watching the videos won't see me. Alright, I'm going to continue the story. But fear not, I am watching chat as much as I can. I walked over to inspect my new cart. It was well constructed. Hell, I'd wager it's worth more than my original cart in its current condition. Buff snorted at me, smelling the yipple in my pack. I chuckled as I pulled it out, ripped it in half, and gave Buff and Regal each a piece. Talina's going to roll her eyes when she hears my new Harnassus' names. But I've never been good at naming stuff. Anyone who has any doubt of that may certainly ask Imlar Tular II. Plexus, it means that the editing time is cut in less than half. Well, more than half. So instead of taking 9 hours to edit a video, it takes 3 hours. So it speeds up the process. There is a hell of a lot more work if you are recording synchronized video and audio. Like, a ridiculous amount of work. Anyone who has any doubt. I'm glad I was able to get them for a good price, but I still felt a pang of grief at the loss of Noble and Hulk. These Harnassus are much larger than Noble and Hulk had been, because they're bred specifically for pulling heavy loads at speed. They also have a certain aggression behind their eyes, like they're looking for an excuse to attack something. It's a tad unnerving, but it might just be my imagination. They'd been remarkably well behaved so far. Are you our driver? Someone asked from behind me. Are you our driver? Someone from behind me asked. I turned to see a group of adventurers and a messenger. The messenger had been the one who spoke. I opened my mouth to respond, but surprise took my voice as I examined the other adventurers. 4 unfamiliar orcs, 2 familiar orcs, and what I now know to be a human. Oh, it's you, Nash said. Hey, Imlar, how have you been? Nick asked with a smile.
I've been good, I managed to say. I'm surprised to see that you're here. You're the adventurers that I'm taking to the capital?
Yes, York interjected.
We've been summoned by the High Chief himself.
Are we ready to go? The messenger asked with annoyance at being ignored.
Not yet. I have got to hire some guards.
I'm available, one of the largest orcs I've ever seen said with a grin. 3 of the other adventurers looked at him with exasperated expressions. I remember what Monar said, and I realized that these were all over 20s. The mountainous one notwithstanding, the other 3 didn't look particularly different from normal adventurers. One was a spellcaster, another was obviously a blade expert, and the third was an unassuming posture of a skilled rogue.
I'm afraid that one of the over 20s. If you're one of the over 20s, I'm afraid I can't afford your services, I replied. I replied gently. Oh, hell, you're doing me a favor by taking me to the payday, he said with a laugh. I'll give you a discount. How's 50 copper sound? We could use the money too, Nash added. 50 copper for myself and my 2 brothers as well. Nick looked at Nash with confusion. My sword's broken, and isn't your axe chipped? My sword's broken, and isn't your axe chipped? Nash looked back at him and replied, My axe still has plenty. Cheers, Plexus. Thank you for popping past. It's very much appreciated. Nash looked back at him and replied, Well, my axe still has plenty of teeth, and you've still got your spells. We'll be able to handle just about anything that we run into on the road. 2 silver isn't bad for guards. I'd been expecting to pay at least 5. Plus, I'd seen the Elder Brothers in action. There's no doubt that they're capable of guarding the caravan. Deal, I said before they could change their minds. Well, that settles that. We're ready to go on our way. Hop aboard. I excitedly climbed into the coach box and grabbed the reins. The Harnassus shifted slightly as the adventurers and messengers took their seats. I watched until they were settled, and then urged Buff and Regal to start pulling. The Harnassus began to pull the cart effortlessly. I'd been a little worried whether or not they could handle it, but my fears were unfounded.
Once I was certain they were following the trail without guidance, I turned back to my passengers for some chit-chat. After learning everyone's names, I asked what was really on my mind.
So, why does the High Chief want to see you? I asked.
He wants to meet Nick, and we're probably getting dragged along due to association, Nash answered. I couldn't tell if he was upset about that or not. Nash has an odd bit of stoicism, it seems. Did you make out okay? Nick asked. Were you able to still make a profit off the stuff we saved?
Yes, and thanks again for the timely rescue. I was able to fulfill the most profitable of my orders and get my cart all patched up. I even got you new... I even got new harnesses, I answered excitedly. Meet Buff and Regal.
Nice to meet you, Nick said with a smile. The harnesses ignored him and continued standing ever forward. The harnesses ignored him and continued striding ever forward. I chuckled at their lack of reaction.
What happened to your sword anyway? I asked.
It broke. Her boss in the dungeon cut right through it.
Ah, a pity. So you're in the market for a new one then?
No, I'm going to try and have it repaired.
Ah, I winced. Is it enchanted?
No, why?
Well, it's usually cheaper to replace a broken blade than it is to fix it. I learned that from my son, I laughed.
You have kids? You have kids? Nash asked.
Yep, 2 sons and a daughter. The eldest is a level 3 adventurer already, I beamed. I'm hoping one day my other children will opt to take over the family business, though.
Why not hire your son as a guard?
Guard duty is boring, apparently. It also doesn't pay well until you're over level 5, I explained. I'd obviously pay him more than normal guard, but the lack of entertainment is a big issue for my boy. He prefers the adventuring part of being an adventurer.
Your clan's bond could be stronger, then. I will work on that with your children. I will work on that with your other children. The criticism stung, but I knew it wasn't coming from a malicious place. Nash seems to like the honourable sort, and giving harsh advice is one of their greatest displays of kindness. He's not wrong, either. Imlar II and I are civil, but we don't see each other nearly as often as I'd like. I tell myself that it's just because we're busy with work, but the truth is I wasn't exactly a great father, and the end result of that is a wedge between us. A tale as old as time. Business always came first. I know it's wrong, but it was ever so easy to justify it at the time. I'd considered myself a good dad because I'd never hit my family, and they never went hungry. Unfortunately, I didn't realize until my son had grown from a boy to a man that that's the bare minimum of fatherhood. I'd missed out on his growth, and didn't make myself available to help mold him. He'd grown into a stranger to me, and I'd let it happen. Now the consequences tear through me like a knife. It's mostly small things, like how he sends letters addressed to his mother instead of to me, or how he'll go to see his friends in town before coming home after an adventure. I'd already resolved to do better with my other children, but it hurt that Nash had been so able to see through the truth. But it hurt that Nash had been able to see the truth of our relationship after such a brief discussion.
That's not an appropriate critique, brother, York interjected. Do we need to work on your social graces again?
No, I'll do better, I swear. Nash held up his hands in mock horror. Seriously, though, I was out of line, Imra. I apologize.
I appreciate the apology, but you are right, I sighed. Business has always kept me away from my family, but even when I was home, I didn't exactly make time for the boy.
My father would play games with us, Yusuf added. Mine would spar with me until we couldn't move any more, Thunra said with a nod. Mine had to work a lot, but made time to take us on vacations whenever he could. Mostly local, but it was all still fun, Nick said sadly. Everyone fell silent at the soft grief in Nick's voice. It hadn't really occurred to me that the human had family back in his world. It reminded me of when I was stuck in the tree, wishing desperately to see my family once again. A terrible feeling indeed. Nash put his hand on Nick's shoulder. Our dad used to do the same thing before he died, Nash said. I don't know if most people would count monster hunting trips as vacations.
I don't know if most people would consider monster hunting trips as vacations, Yook added with a chuckle, and I'm certain that Nick doesn't.
Well, it got us out of the house and strengthened our bond, did it not? Nash asked irritably.
How did he pass? How did he pass, if you don't mind me asking? I interrupted.
Yook and Nash looked at each other for a moment, then shrugged. He was poisoned by an enemy of our family.
He was poisoned by an enemy of our family, Yook explained casually. Heartbeat, and nothing could be done.
Oh, yep. And then Mom hunted down the poisoner.
Oh, yep.
Yep. And then Mom hunted down the poisoner. Yep. And then Mom hunted the poisoner down and carved him into little pieces in front of everyone, Nash said. He wanted to come with. He wanted to come with, but she made us stay home. Didn't want us to see that. But we heard about all that happened in the city guard years later.
Nick's expression had gone from sad to shock. The only face that wasn't showing surprise was Thunder's, who nodded along to the story as if it was something he'd heard before.
Go feck with the altar clan, he said quietly.
It was on this somber and terrifying note that I opted to turn my attention back to the road. We've been making good time, and the change from forest to desert is now within view. This was a portion of road where I'd met Nick, Nash, and Yulk. I shuddered at the memory of the giant rats.
Hey, I recognize that tree,
Nick said, as with the tree.
Hey, I recognize that tree,
Nick said, as the tree that had been my home for a time came into view.
Wait, where's the giant rat bodies?
Eaten, presumably, Yuk answered. There are a lot of predators in the wastes. It would be a terrible omen if a corpse were to last longer than a day.
Why is that?
Nick asked. It would mean that there's an apex predator nearby. Grim, but accurate. There isn't much that is natural about the wastes, but even monsters follow a pecking order. Anything that can be killed without too much of a fight is prey, regardless of that prey. Regardless of what that prey eats in turn. There are some predators who are simply too fast or too strong to be considered prey by anything else, and these apex predators are notoriously difficult to kill.
Well, it's a good thing that I don't see any signs of our fight then, Nick said. So, the wastes. They were caused by the Cataclysm War, right?
Wars. There were more than one, Joni said, perking up after the first time. Joni said, perking up for the first time since he got on the cart. 5 total, and 3 of them were fought simultaneously.
Okay. Who was fighting?
Everyone. These cataclysmic conflicts were aptly named. The world nearly ended. It doesn't just mean all life on the planet either. The magics involved threatened to break our world into multiple occasions. The magics involved threatened to break our world in multiple occasions, York added. It got so bad that not much is actually known about the conflicts themselves, because hardly anyone survived to write their histories. That's right, Joni nodded sadly. There's an account carved in stone in the Dwarven Kingdom of Prignera. In the Dwarven Kingdom of Prignera, on the southern continent, but it's unknown if the account is accurate, because there is no way to verify it. Ain't Prignera one of them bunker countries, where the whole thing is pretty much underground? Thunder asked, to which Joni nodded again.
Wait, okay, so hold on. You don't know what started the fighting, Nick interrupted.
Not for certain, Joni answered. However, the account in Prignera says that demons... The account in Prignera says that daemons conspired to convince all the countries of Myr to attack each other. And once that war was nearly finished, the forces of hell invaded our plane of existence. These were the first 2 Cataclysm Wars.
Wait, hell exists here?
Nick incredulously asked. Again, we don't know for certain. A lot of scholars believe that daemons are a somewhat...
Daemons are a convenient scapegoat created to cover up magical experimentation that went on during these conflicts, Johnny explained. The Daemons won the Second Cataclysm War, according to the account, but their victory was short-lived. The Third Cataclysm War began when the Annuals won the Third Cataclysm War began when the Annuals from the Plane of Haven invaded, supposedly to restore order and free the Mer from their tyranny of the Daemons. They managed to take half of every continent, but were fought to a standstill. What about the fourth and fifth? Didn't they happen at the same time as the third? Yes. The Annuals ruled over the Mer with just as much tyranny as the Daemons did. Less slavery and butchery, but even the pettiest of crimes were met with extremely harsh punishments. This was the order that they so craved. But mortals require a balance of order and chaos to happily live our lives. The Daemons saw this and made a fatal mistake, Journey said. They convinced some of the Mer who were living under the Annuals to rebel. Once they did, the Daemons went on the offensive. However, the sight of mortals fighting against the Annuals inspired those who were subjugated by the Daemons to rebel as well. The war between the Annuals and the Mer was the Fourth Cataclysm War, and the war between the Daemons and the Mer were the Fifth. Daemons fighting Annuals, Mer fighting demons, and Mer fighting Annuals. Everything natural in this world rose up against the two occupying armies and fought them back to their own planes. Never to be seen or heard from again, Thunra finished with a laugh. I don't know how much stock I put in these tales like that. I think I'm of the belief that powerful mages were fecking with forces they don't understand, and opted to cover it up once the dust settled. That is the more plausible explanation, but there's technically less evidence of that, Joni countered. Lack of evidence is usually evidence of a cover-up, Thunra said. Spoken like a city guard. You ever think about a career change? Yolk grinned. Spoken like a city guard. You ever think about a career change? Yolk grinned. 3 arts and a cot don't sound so bad. But my pa would have my balls if I even tried. Everyone laughed as we continued our journey. End of story. Oh, it's not a story, it's a chapter. End of chapter. Ooh-wee. I'm gonna let this process. I'm gonna turn the music up a little bit, and I will be right back. Alrighty, back. The move from South Africa to Portugal was not without red tape. A lot of red tape. So, like all governments, the primary purpose is to create red tape. So, once you get past that, things are easier. I think they took the red ribbon of fate and just changed that completely. Alrighty, moving on to the next chapter. Oh. Stretch. Trying to stretch this muscle here. So this shoulder is lower than this shoulder. Scoliosis or whatever. But this means that this is a muscle or tendon that goes from my shoulder blade up into my head. And when it pulls tight, I actually get a migraine. But from a voice acting point of view, it tightens the muscles in my neck, which means that the vocal muscles are tight and strain easier. So, got to do some stretching. Alrighty. Story, or chapter number next. Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this latest narration of the web series. Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this latest narration of the web series, The Human from a Dungeon. If you're new to this series, there is a playlist listed down below in the description. And as always, I hope that you enjoy. Chapter 22. Nick Smith, Adventurer Level 5. Human American. Come on, kiddo, you gotta get up your guard. Come on, kiddo, you gotta keep your guard up, Thunder shouted. What does that even mean? I asked in frustration as I got off the ground. I felt a bit of drool drip down my chin. I wiped at it, and my hand came back bloody. A slight sting told me that Thunder had split my lip. Angry, I once again put my fists up. All right, see, your hands are too close together. You gotta be able to see all of me, Thunder explained. Also, you don't really gotta be making fists. You're supposed to be stopping me from hitting you, not trying to hit me. That is very funny. Shh! Top secret. You can't speak ever again. This is how boxers do it, though, I countered. I don't know what that is, Thunder laughed. but it ain't working for you. I opened my hands and spread them apart until I could see all of Thunderer. He grinned and rushed at me. I immediately activated time dilation, but it hardly seemed to slow the gigantic orc down. He swung his massive fist, and I was able to barely redirect the punch, so that it sailed past my head. I clenched my left hand and sent it in Thunderer's face, as I clenched my left hand and sent it at Thunderer's face, as I felt something hit me in the gut. Time dilation deactivated, and I went flying back. I slammed into the ground and rolled, gasping for air and getting a mouthful of dirt for my troubles. You managed to block a punch. That's great. Good job, Nick, Thunderer shouted with glee as I sputtered. Yeah, great, I managed to say once I could breathe again. I spit the rest of the dirt out of my mouth and rose to my feet again. My legs, however, had other plans and gave out on me. I sighed as I pushed myself back up. You all right? Thunderer asked. My legs are wobbly. You got me pretty hard, I answered. Oh, damn, sorry about that. I'll dial it back a bit. I was going at 75, but I think I overshot your abilities a bit. I'll drop to 50%. It's difficult to describe the wave of emotions that washed over me upon learning that the giant orc brawler had already been holding back. Anger at myself for not being able to keep up, happiness that he's going to be holding back even more, and shock at how much power the bastard actually has. I suggest a short break while I repair your spleen, Ten said. My spleen? Yes. The last impact slightly ruptured it. I've got it under control, but it'll be easier for you to lay down for a few minutes. As logic overrode adrenaline, the pain where Thunderer had hit me got worse. A lot worse. It radiated up my upper left torso, just behind the bottom of my ribs. It felt like my stomach was on fire and my body was trying to blow out the fire with a needle tornado. I held up one hand and laid on the ground. The pain slowly began to ebb as Thunderer walked over to me with a curious expression. I need a minute. Apparently you ruptured my spleen, I said as I casually... I said as casually as I could. Oh, shit, Thunderer said. You gonna be okay? Do we need to call Yolk? Unnecessary. Healing magic will interfere. Ten's got this. Just need a few minutes is all. Thunderer walked over and sat next to me while Ten repaired the injury. So, what's a spleen anyways? He asked. I'm not 100% sure. I think it has something to do with filtering blood, like a liver, I answered. The spleen controls the level of white blood cells, red blood cells, and blood platelets contained within your blood. It also screens the blood and removes any old or damaged red blood cells, Ten explained. Never mind. Ten explained it. It filters the blood and controls the levels of white and red blood cells, I said. Handy little thing, Thunderer chuckled. I'm guessing that's not a vital organ, right? The skill I used is supposed to incapacitate, not kill. Humans can live without a spleen, but the ruptured spleen causes internal bleeding that can become fatal within 24 or 48 hours. Ten says it's not a vital organ, but a ruptured one bleeds inside you and can be fatal after a day or two if it isn't fixed, I answered. All right, that makes sense, Thunderer sighed with relief. If you walk around with that much pain for 2 days, you're kind of asking for it, you know. I lay there silently, letting Ten do its thing. I found it kind of interesting that Thunderer's skill was supposed to incapacitate me, but could have ended up killing me in the long run. If you looked at it in terms of black and white, the skill failed. However, and a ruptured spleen isn't fatal if you get it treated, so in a way, the skill did exactly what it was supposed to do. I guess skills aren't perfect, and it's probably important to keep that in mind. Don't want to accidentally cause someone's death when I'm just trying to get them to stop fighting. Even though I hadn't learned the skill from our sparring yet, Thunderer had still taught me a lesson. Spleen repaired, you're good to go, Ten said. I enjoyed laying down for a few seconds before sitting up. All right, I'm ready. Good, Thunderer said, helping me up. We'll try again, but this time I want you to focus on evading my strikes. I'm going to hit you with a flurry unless you stop me." I nodded resolutely. A flurry involves a lot of punches happening very quickly. Definitely don't want to get hit with that. I took a stance, and Thunder charged. He swung with his right fist, and I activated time dilation again. I pushed his right fist upward with my left hand and elbowed his left fist away from me. His hands quickly tucked back into him and came at me again. But he kept deflecting them. Right, left, both left, right. Right, left, both left, right. Time dilation wore off, but I was still managing to keep up with his strikes. Barely. Then his left fist did something weird. It seemed to be in 3 places at once. I blocked one of the strikes, but the 2 others were going to hit me. Preternatural invasion. Yeah. Preternatural invasion unlocked. Preternatural evasion unlocked. My foot pushed off the ground on its own, and my body twisted out of the way of the other 2 strikes, and even managed to avoid the surprise right-hand attack. I moved faster than I thought that I could, and Thunder noticed the change in speed. He held up his hands and grinned. "Whoa, okay, let's stop," he said. "What's that, a new skill?" "Yeah," I said, once again out of breath. "Preternatural evasion. Oh, a dodge one. Congratulations." "Thanks." I concentrated on the skill's name, and the box popped up. Preternatural Evasion 1 allows a user to automatically dodge for 1 minute. Cooldown, 10 minutes. "Automatically dodge?" I asked. "Yeah, you move on your own," Thunro answered. "Well, not that you don't already move on your own, I guess you could say." I zoned out as Thunro struggled to explain the concept of automatic movement. Preternatural Evasion seems like a very useful skill, but a 10-minute cooldown could be an issue. Maybe if I level it up, the cooldown will decrease. Hey, Ten, you level a skill up by using it, right?" I asked. "For the most part. Certain skills require milestones to be met before they will level up, regardless of whether or not your skill is utilized. Their own milestones are generally able to be met quicker by using the skill, though. Other skills require a deeper understanding of the nature of the skill to level up, which usually occurs naturally while using the skill," Ten explained. "It's exceedingly rare for a skill that can level up, It's exceedingly rare for a skill that can level up not to do so as you use it." "I understand. So what does Preternatural Evasion 2 look like? Does the cooldown decrease at all?" "Well, I can't tell you. Something is stopping me." "What? What's stopping you?" "I don't know. I can tell you all about your current skills, but I can't give you details about ones you don't have," Ten said. "Do you want to know more about Preternatural Evasion 1? "No, I got it." "Well, that's concerning and annoying. I don't even know if leveling up Preternatural Evasion is going to be worth it or not. And now I've got to worry about whatever's keeping Ten from telling me stuff about skills. It's probably the Cure God or whatever, but I wonder what else Ten can't tell me." "Like one of the machines, you know." "Like one of the machines, you know?" Thunder asked, clearly looking for an answer. "Yeah, sure," I replied. "You ready to go again?" "Thought you'd never ask," he said with a grin. As we took our stances, it occurred to me that I didn't know how much time was left in the cooldown for Preternatural Evasion. A right hook to the face quickly let me know that it hadn't finished cooling down quite yet. Thankfully, Yithith interrupted our sparring match before any more punches could be thrown. "Time to head out," she said. Thunra complained a bit, but we ended up loading up onto the wagons and continuing on our way, ending my first bout of training. We didn't train on the first day of our journey, because we had left the afternoon and didn't stop until it was dusk. Well, except for bathroom breaks. I went over to the results of my training in my head as we drove on. "Ten, is there any way to see the cooldowns for my skills?" I asked. "Yes. You don't currently have any on cooldown, but when you do, you'll see it in the upper right corner of your vision," Ten said. I set the opacity to 25% so that it doesn't impede your vision. Thanks. I have no idea. I imagine it depends on your dialect. To me, preternatural, with the pre, it makes more sense than preternatural, with the over-announced E. But as long as people understand what you're saying, it doesn't really matter. Although preternatural does sound better, I think. Thanks. We continued on until dusk, stopped, rested, woke up, had breakfast, and got back on the road once again. Most of the discussions were how the best season certain meats had. Most of the discussions were how to best season certain meats that I'd never heard of, with Imlaw chiming in when a spice that also paired well with vegetables was mentioned. I was too busy dreading my training with Nash to participate in the conversation much. My dread grew worse and worse as the sun rose higher and higher into the sky. Finally, the cart stopped and Nash was the first to jump off. "My turn," he said while grabbing the 2 wooden swords. "You'll be on the offense today." My spirits rose with this, and I happily caught the sword and tossed it at me. And happily caught the sword he tossed at me. It shouldn't hurt so bad if I suppose pre is in Pretoria, or the way Americans over-announce some, it shouldn't. Vowels. I think preternatural would be the English pronunciation, and preternatural would be the American pronunciation. At a guess, but I'm just a dumb shit narrator. I don't know. I'd say it the way the machine tells me to say it, or the way I think it should be said. Or the way the chat tells me to say it. One of these things. At me. It shouldn't hurt so bad if I'm the one doing the swinging, right? We walked a short distance away from everyone else and took our stances. "Begin," he said. I immediately charged at him with an underhand swing to try and throw him off balance. I glanced at the ground to be sure of my footing, and my vision went dark. I shook my head in confusion, and when my sight came back, I found myself with a very familiar view. I watched a cloud drift by for a moment, then got up. "The hell happened?" I asked Ten. "He leapt forward and kicked you in the forehead. You're fine, though." I looked up at Nash, and he was greeted by an awfully smug expression. "Keep your eyes on your opponent," he said condescendingly. "Try again." This time, I tried for a horizontal strike and activated time dilation. Nash must have seen this coming, because he blunted the point of his blade at exactly where my forehead had to be to complete my strike. If I had used dash, I'd have been knocked out. Silently cursed to myself and managed to barely avoid the counterattack, backing off in the process. A timer said the time dilation appeared and began counting down from 5 again. A timer that showed time dilation. A timer that said time dilation appeared and began counting down from 5 minutes. "Good, you're not quite as bad as you used to be," Nash laughed. "Try again." "Shit," I said, staring at the timer. I took a deep breath and decided on my course of action. I ran towards Nash and activated Side Slash. He leapt backwards, and I threw my sword at his face and used dash to get closer. I balled up my fist and prepared to activate Breathtaker Strike, but Nash spun around quickly, turning his back to prevent the skill from activating, and brought up my left hand to block. I brought up my left hand to block an elbow that he threw at my face, but couldn't stop the force he put behind it. My hand smashed into my face, and I slammed into the ground. "Cloud watching again?" Ted asked. Not helpful. Not helpful. My bones seemed to creak as I once again got off the ground. The wooden sword I had thrown at Nash landed at my feet. You shouldn't throw your weapon unless you have another one handy, Nash said. Your fists don't count quite yet, by the way. Then why did you avoid them? I asked sarcastically. Because I can, and that's my point. What good is a weapon that can't hit its target? I mean, it would hit most targets. The only reason it didn't hit you is because you were expecting it, I pointed out. The reason I can't land a hit is because you know. The reason I can't land a hit is because you have more experience than I do, and you know my fighting style. It's not fair. Nash's laughter interrupted me. Why would that matter? He asked sardonically. It's not as if I'd be doing you any favors by letting you hit me. You grow as you figure out how to hit me. And of course it isn't fair. This isn't some rich nobleman's tournament. We're training to make sure that you don't die when you're faced with monsters. Or would you rather have 10 do all of that work? I inwardly cringed. Nash had hit a nerve with the 10 comment, and I was immediately embarrassed by my misconceptions. No, I don't want 10 to do any of the work, I answered. I don't want to be like that thing. Nash's attitude changed. His smugness evaporated, and he suddenly became concerned. Did 10 say something about that? He asked. No, just an assumption on my part, I replied. Intuition, I suppose. The man in the dungeon did not have an AI, but it was in standby mode. The man in the dungeon did have an AI, but it was in standby mode when we fought, 10 said. How do you know? It didn't respond to any of my attempts at communication. What if it didn't want to talk, or couldn't? That hadn't occurred to me. I suppose it's a possibility. I opted to keep that to myself as Nash sighed. Bless your neck. Do you know what the most important thing to do in a fight is? Protect others? I asked. Ah, right. He scratched the back of his neck. I was actually going to say survive. I guess it's kind of complicated. But if you've got the option to survive and to help others, survive. But if you've got the option to survive and to help others survive, you should take a hold of that option with both hands. So if it comes to that, don't hesitate to rely on 10. In every other situation, though, you should be fighting with your own 2 hands. All right, I understand, I said. I do kind of understand where Nash is coming from, but something feels wrong when using 10 to fight. My dad always used to say that the easy road was hidden. My dad used to say that the hidden road is filled with My dad always used to say that the easy road was hidden pitfalls. My dad always used to say that the easy road has hidden pitfalls. I might be biased because I don't like the idea of something else controlling my body, but I can't seem to shake the feeling that there's some sort of cost to 10 taking over. Maybe I'm just being paranoid. Well, that's enough stalling, Nash said with a grin. Try again. End of chapter. Water. Well, Shadow, the other thing is, when you start narrating, especially on YouTube, you realize how quickly that there are various pronunciations for many things. I had to change a lot of my South African-based pronunciations to a more American-based pronunciation so that people could understand me better. But I think the scrolling text does help when there is a bit of a confusion over the pronunciation of something. Medicinal gummy bear. It would be funny if you developed a skill about cloud watching, but who knows what'll happen. Oh. Alrighty, on to the next chapter. Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this latest iteration of the web series The Human from a Dungeon. If you're new to the series, there is a playlist listed down below in the description. And as always, I hope that you enjoy. Chapter 23. Yulk Altar, Adventurer Level 7, Orc Nulavan. We've been on the road for 4 days, and the trip has been mostly uneventful. Nash and Thunra were pummeling some semblance of a fighting style into Nick, and we're making great time on our way to the capital. The only thing that we've run into so far is other travelers, and because of reading. The only thing that a bit of confusion there with the microphone. It muted. Don't know how badly or for how long. And we're making great time on our way to the capital. The only thing we've run into so far is other travelers, and because of this, our spirits are high. Well, except for Nick's. I grinned at the boy as he collapsed into his seat, fresh from a sparring with Thunra. My grin was met with a stoic yet weary expression. His training had been difficult, but I'd only had to help him heal him once. 10 does an amazing job at keeping Nick functional. My grin faded as the AI came to mind. I recalled a metal box that fell out of the dungeon creature's slatted brains. There's little doubt that it contained a being like 10, and 10 had also seemed to know to look for it, although that could be attributed to amazing reaction times. If the crazed human in the dungeon had an AI in its head, who was controlling the body? Perhaps the AI was like 10 before it woke up, and the human simply lost its mind due to the tragic nature of his situation. He had to have been down there for a very long time, so that could have cost him his sanity as well. Being alone in the dark for years, perhaps even decades, it's no wonder he turned feral. I suppose it's also possible that the AI had gone insane along with the human. If something can think, it can likely also feel, and anything that can feel can go mad. This begets the question, which went insane first? Did the human's insanity cause the AI to go feral, or did the AI's insanity cause the human to lose it? Are we there yet? Nick asked, jarring me from my thoughts.
Nope, soon though, Imlas answered. If all goes well, we'll be at the outskirts of the capital around dusk. We'll make camp there and be at your destination by noon tomorrow.
Why haven't we run into anything killable yet?
I laughed and said,
I laughed and said, "We got lucky. Imlar has taken us on an adventurous route, which would normally be a more dangerous option. I suspect that the reason for our luck in all of the travelers we've seen so far. I suspect that the reason for our luck is all the other travelers we've seen so far. Since they are also adventurers, they could fort. Since they are also adventurers, they would fort and. Since they are already adventurers, they would have fought any monsters they came across. I was sure we were going to be able to fight something when we went through the swamp, Nick muttered. Now we're back in the forest, though.
Feeling a bit aggressive, are we? I asked condescendingly.
Not going to lie to you, Yolk. Yes, I am. Very. Nash and Thunder are leagues above me when it comes to experience. I'm rarely able to even land a hit, he ranted. It's not good for my confidence, you know.
Well, the High Chief will have a quest waiting for us. Maybe it'll involve fighting monsters.
I hope so.
It's not so bad, Imlar interjected. You got some new skills, right?
Yeah, Nick sighed. 2 skills in 4 days.
You say that like you were expecting more, I said. A new skill every 2 days is quite a feat, even with trainers like Thunder and Nash.
Really?
Yes. Most people unlock skills as they go, and usually in combat with tough monsters. Training a new skill outside of combat can take weeks. That's one of the reasons I opted to go into magic instead of melee, I grinned.
Nick laughed. It's not like you had much of a choice, though, right?
Sure I did. I could have been a warrior like Nash, and it would have been just as hard for me as it was for him. But since I was blessed with a better-than-average magic core, I was able to dedicate my time to magic instead. Since it's extremely difficult to train both martial and magical prowess simultaneously, everyone was very understanding when I chose magic and didn't bother to learn to swing an axe.
So what you're saying is that I've gotten lucky, he laughed again. How come it doesn't feel like that?
It's pretty common to be lucky and also completely oblivious to it, I answered.
Nick fell into a silent contemplation as everyone else finished loading into the carts. As we continued our journey, I wondered about Nick's propensity for advancement in regards to his skills. It seems to go a bit beyond him simply being a natural at combat. Could it be that something related to his species, perhaps? Maybe humans are simply a jack-of-all-trades kind of race. On the other hand, the creature from the dungeon didn't use any magic. It could be that it was unable to do... It could be that it was unable due to its mental state. Some monsters stop using magic when they frenzy, and if a sorcerer is sufficiently stressed, their spells are affected as well. It's entirely possible that at one point it could use magic, so perhaps we should simply be thankful that it couldn't at the time. Come to think of it, Nick described his magic channels as being straight. I didn't put much thought into that at the time, wrote it off as an odd quirk of an unfamiliar species. But after seeing the metal box fall out of the other human's head, I couldn't help but wonder. Are they artificial? Nick had said that the world he comes from doesn't have magic, but could that be due to the fact that humans simply can't naturally use magic? Why would someone go through the effort of making sure humans could use magic? What materials would one even use to create an artificial core? What materials would one even use to create an artificial magic core and channels? No, that's not even the biggest problem with this line of thought. How would one possibly create a magic that fills the core in such quantities to power through the No, that's not even the biggest problem with this line of thought. How would one possibly create a magic that fills the core, and in such quantities, to power through the misconceived visualization trigger? Nick's wind spear had been very powerful for a beginner, and I'd been under the impression that it was due to his knowledge of the concept of wind. After hearing him explain how he thought wind worked at Matry, well, it can't be denied that he had inadvertently put a massive amount of magical force into the spell. Like a beast that doesn't know its own strength, trying to use a fragile piece of equipment. Thrilling, I muttered to myself. Several pairs of eyes turned to look at me simultaneously. I waved a hand in a nonchalant way to indicate that I was speaking to myself. Don't worry, he gets like that sometimes, Nash said, in my defense. The eyes went about their business and left me to sum up my thoughts. Nick has a massive amount of potentially artificial core magic, and I have no way of determining if that magic is natural or not without hurting the boy. Damn it all. We should have performed an autopsy on the feral one. That simply not occurred to me at the time. I was more concerned with the fact that we survived the encounter.
Which skills did you learn anyway?
Imlar asked Nick, bringing me back to reality. Preternatural evasion and knife hand, Nick answered.
Knife hand?
I asked. Yeah, it makes my hand hard when I do this. He held his hand outstretched hand. Preternatural evasion and knife hand, Nick answered.
Knife hand?
I asked. Yeah, it makes my hand hard when I do this. He held up his hand outstretched. He held up his outstretched hand with all his fingers pressed tightly together, and that makes my karate chop do a lot of damage. They can also intimidate weaker enemies if I pointed at them.
Hey, sounds
handy, I grinned. Everyone had been listening in and were punished for their nosiness by my wordplay. I met their groans with a chuckle. Right, so Panzer's side, what does preternatural evasion do? Himmler asked. I met the groans with a chuckle.
Right, so Panzer's side, what does preternatural evasion do? Himmler asked.
It lets him automatically dodge attacks that can be dodged, Thunder answered. Both skills are very useful for weaponless brawling. I looked at Nash and gave him a slightly smug smirk, then turned back to Nick.
So you didn't learn any sword skills? I asked with a malicious grin.
No, he fucking didn't, Nash growled. And if you're trying to imply that it's my fault, I'll kick your arse right off this cart.
Oh no, I would never dream of blaming Nick's swordsmanship instructor for his lack of sword skills,
I said with a measured sarcasm. My skin is tougher than your words, Nash replied while crossing his arms. You won't rile me up. Any further than that? Any further than he already has? Matry asked innocently. Oh, so now it's a group effort, is it? Nash shouted. Our laughter rang out through the trees and almost masked the sound of wood crunching. Everyone except Imlar stopped laughing, then immediately turned towards the sound. Stop the cart, I said. Dibs, Nick shouted as he leapt from the cart. The hell does dibs mean? Nash asked as he jumped after Nick. I waited for the cart to come to a halt before climbing off. Nick and Nash were joined by Thunderer, whom I hadn't even seen move. They were already about 50 yards ahead of me. Nick reached for his belt, and then, remembering he doesn't have a sword, slowed to allow the other two to catch up. Before they could, though, two thick trees turned to splinters as a massive red and yellow beast crashed through them. It took a second to gain its bearings, and then roared a challenge at us, exposing rows of fangs and a tongue with a stinger in the tip. Its four eyes focused on Nick, and it stepped forward. What in the hells is that thing? Nick shouted. Nash glanced at me, unsure of what we were looking at. Fair, considering we hadn't seen one before. The coloration was confusing, not designed to supply camouflage in a forest at all. But that's because it isn't designed to be camouflaged, nor is it supposed to be in the forest. Its domed skull, covered in metallic spikes, told me exactly what it was. It's a Nahalim, Dunra shouted. Get back! A Nahalim, a creature created in a twisted time of disastrous war. designed specifically to breach barricades and destroy defenders, while drawing attention away from other attackers. The 3 claws on each limb were capable of cracking through stone like sharpest of picks. Cracking through stone like the sharpest of picks. And to add to its burp. And to add to its lethality, its creators had made it venomous, a terrible creature, and most unfortunate that we find one so close to the capital. We have to kill it. Reaps the new to sack, Nick shouted, ignoring the sage advice that the brawler had given him. Wind slashed around as his spine of Wind slashed around us as his spell launched towards the Nehilim. It was a very powerful attempt, and I covered my eyes to protect them from the dust it kicked up. Despite the foolishness of the action, I found myself with a sense of pride for my pupil. Once the wind died down, though, Nick was on the ground with a very nasty-looking gash on his chest. Joni rushed past me to his aid. Knowing that Joni would keep Nick alive, I focused on the Nehilim. It wasn't undamaged, but its injury could be considered a minor flesh wound for one of its ilk. Its metallic skull glimmered in the sun, and 2 of the spikes had been shorn clean off. Ochre-colored blood oozed from the flesh, still clinging desperately to the remaining spikes. No wind spear wouldn't work. No, wind spear wouldn't work against such a foe. This is a specific class of spell one must cast to destroy a Nehilim, and it has to be a powerful one. The monster shook its head and stepped towards Nick and Joni, clearly angry at the injury it sustained. Nash and Thunra stepped in, slashing and punching respectively. The creature's attention turned, and it immediately began fighting them. I dropped my staff and raised both my hands, feeling the arcane energy swell within my head. I focused on the glimmer of the Nehilim's exposed skull, and decided which spell to use. Nash and Thunra were in their way, though, dodging tooth, tongue, and claw. "Get out of the way!" I shouted. The 2 veteran fighters glanced at me for a millisecond before making a run for it. The Nehilim looked at the 2 of them, unsure which one to pursue. The hair on my arm stood on end as I began my visualization. Electrical energy, unbelievably powerful, moving at the speed of light towards the exposed metal. Tlob Salami to sack. My eyes felt as if they were on fire. My chest felt as if it had been kicked in the nass. My chest felt as if it had been kicked by a nass, and my arms burned as a lightning bolt travelled from me to the Nehilim. The strike was instant, and giant monster collapsed to the ground. I grinned in satisfaction as my legs gave out, and I fell to my knees. I gasped through the pain, letting it roll through me and keeping myself calm as it did so. It's just a little pain. No need to panic. "Yulk!" Nash shouted as he ran up to me. "Are you hurt?" "Yes, but it's fine," I waved him off. "Imlar's bolt is a hell of a spell. Brother, how's Nick?" Imlar's bolt is a hell of a spell, brother. How's Nick?" "He seems all right," Thunra answered as he approached. "Not even bleeding anymore. Joni looked like he'd seen a ghost, though. You sure you'll be okay?" "Yes," I said, grabbing my staff and rising to my feet. "It's pain, not an injury. It's just one of the costs of the spell." "Huh?" they asked in unison. "Most spells just cost magic to cast, but certain spells cost a little something extra. A sort of curse to remind one to use the spell sparingly," I explained. "Never mind that. Let's check on Nick." They eyed me warily as we walked over to Joni and Nick. Thunra was right. Joni looked terrified. His pale face looked up at us, and he pointed to Nick. It spoke," he whispered. "What's that? Speak up." Thunra held up a hand to his ear. He spoke. It spoke. He said it spoke. By it, I'm assuming it means 10, I said. "The robot in Nick's head, the very same." "Oh, cool," Thunra grinned. Joni looked at us, his shock turning into incredulity and finally to anger. You knew the AI could use Nick to talk, he demanded. Oh, come on, Joni. Oh, come on, Joni. Give him the benefit of the doubt, Thunder interjected. The AI used Nick's body to fight before. Why wouldn't it be able to use his mouth to talk? Common sense. Actually, Thunder, we did know. Actually, Thunder, we did know, Nash said sheepishly. 10 talked to us after the fight with the altered human. Oh, how come you didn't say nothing? Well, you didn't quite get a chance, if you recall. We didn't quite get the chance, if you recall, I said with a grin. And after that interaction, we thought it best to keep it between us. Joni, step aside, please. I need to ask 10 something before Nick wakes up. Joni looked offended, but moved so that I could kneel down. He muttered a curse under his breath and crossed his arms. 10, can you hear me? I asked. Yes, Nick's voice said. How is Nick doing? He's stable. Joni's healing was very helpful. He'll be back up soon. Good, I nodded. Now then, why didn't you take control of his body like you did in the dungeon? I caught 3 surprised expressions in my peripheral visions. I tried, I tried, 10 said, in a whining tone that surprised me. He stopped me. I didn't even know he could do that. How? I asked. I do not know. He shouldn't have been able to. If that attack had been a little stronger, or a millimeter to the left, we'd be died. If that attack had been a little stronger, or a millimeter to the left, we would have died. Did you try to take control before he cast Wind Spear, or after? Nash asked. Before. It took half a second to fully detail the beast once I had the clear view of it, and I determined that Nick would not have been able to defeat it. I attempted to gain control, but was unable to. He simply didn't go under, 10 explained. That's the second time I've experienced panic. Not enjoyable. Don't mean to be mean, buddy, but it's his body, Thunder interjected. Can't expect him to be willing to just hand it over at a drop of a hat. We could have died, 10 said softly. He's waking up now. Goodbye. We stared in uncomfortable silence at Nick's unconscious form. He looked peaceful, like a sleeping child. An illusion that was quickly shattered when he began coughing roughly and sat up. What happened? He asked. You nearly died, dumbass, Nash immediately answered. Next time the over 20 tells you to get back, you better fucking listen. Hey, Matry shouted from behind us. How's Nick? He's fine, Thunder called out as Matry and Yusuf ran over. We've checked the perimeter, Yusuf said. Looks like we're clear. They looked at the corpse of the Nehilim, flames flickering where its eyes used to be. A lot more of its metallic endoskeleton was showing now. I couldn't help but be a little proud. Let's get back on the road, I said. End of chapter. What's it, fluffy dog? What? Standing away. Okay. Okay. You want to say hello? Kim. There we go. Say hello to everybody. Woof woof. Okay. There you go. Look at the camera. Oh, no, okay. You just want to get in the way and get a scratch. Okay? Scritches. Scritches. You're licking my arm. You're going to eat me. Okay. Oh, there we go. And off he goes. He's got his scratches. Now he's gone. Alrighty. Ooh. That was a decent recording session. But as you can tell, my recording muscles are now tired. Brain is also tired. So I couldn't maybe squeak out another one. But it'll be disjointed and not as bombastic as it should be. So I think we'll call it there for the recording. We've been going for 3 hours. That's awesome. It is also lunchtime. Yep. I'll have a strategic jelly bean. Not jelly bean. What is that? A jelly castle. Thank you very much, Zanti. Brian, it should be the exact same time and place. Hope you all have a fantastic day, night, afternoon, or whatever it may be. And I'll see you all tomorrow. Thank you for spending your time with me. It is very much appreciated. And I hope you all have a good one. Cheers.